Let me ask you something personal right from the start. Have you ever wished for a single moment to change your entire life? Like, you're going about your day, nothing special, just the usual struggles, the daily grind, and then bam, a twist of fate, a kiss, a glance, a moment that flips your world upside down? I mean, we've all dreamed of it, right? That Cinderella moment, that Hollywood-style rescue, that billionaire fantasy. But what if I told you this story is more than just a fantasy? What if I told you it actually happened, and not in the way you'd expect? You clicked on this video because that title sparked something in you. Curiosity, wonder, maybe even hope. And trust me when I say, you're about to get the answer you came looking for. But buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't just a love story. It's a storm of betrayal, ambition, revenge, and the shocking kiss that changed everything. So don't go anywhere. This is your story now, too. And I promise, by the end, you'll see how close any of us are to a life we never imagined. Our story begins in the bustling, ever-glowing heart of Manhattan, where dreams are born, crushed, and sometimes resurrected in the most unpredictable ways. Meet Amelia Brooks, 25, overworked, underpaid, and almost invisible in a city that chews up souls and spits out stories no one tells. She wasn't a model. She wasn't a socialite. She wasn't even verified on Instagram. Just another face in the crowd, wearing knockoff heels and carrying coffee she could barely afford. But what she had, what most people missed, was a quiet resilience, a softness edged with fire. She wasn't chasing luxury or fame. She just wanted peace, purpose, and maybe a little dignity. But fate had other plans. You ever feel like the world's watching everyone but you? That you're screaming in silence, hoping life will finally notice? That was Amelia. Her life was one long waiting room. Until the kiss. A kiss from the one man no one ever dared to dream about. Enter Logan Whitmore, tech mogul, young billionaire. The kind of man whose smile melts headlines and whose name trends every time he so much as sneezes. With a fortune built on futuristic AI and luxury gadgets, he was the golden boy of Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and every major gossip blog. He was rich, untouchable, and terrifyingly mysterious, known for his brilliance and his complete disinterest in romance. No scandals, no flings, no entanglements. Just power, control, silence. So, how in the world did a man like Logan kiss a woman like Amelia? Right in the middle of a five-star gala, no less, with flashing cameras and every elite watching? Was it love? A mistake? A setup? That kiss, unexpected, unexplained, and undeniably real, turned Amelia's world into something out of fever dream. In the blink of an eye, she became viral. The video hit TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, everywhere. Hashtag billionaire kiss, hashtag who is she, hashtag Amelia and Logan started trending faster than celebrity breakups. Within hours, Amelia was no longer invisible. But fame, my friends, is a double-edged sword. Because when a billionaire touches your life, it's never casual, never safe, never temporary. People started watching her, following her, wanting her, and not just romantically. We're talking about powerful women who wanted her silenced, men in suits who wanted her reputation destroyed, PR sharks, social media vultures, the press, and even people from her past she tried so hard to leave behind. They all came knocking. Everyone wanted a piece of her, for reasons she didn't yet understand. But Amelia wasn't naive. That kiss didn't feel like a fairy tale. It felt like the beginning of something far more dangerous. So, why did Logan kiss her? Who pulled the strings? Was it love at first sight, or a calculated move in a much bigger game? I know what you're thinking. Just tell me already. But trust me, you don't want the fast version. Because the truth? It's deeper than you think. You came here for answers, and I will give them to you. But not until you understand what Amelia was up against. You deserve the full story. You need to feel what she felt, see what she saw, and experience the storm that followed. Let's rewind the clock just a bit, back to that morning. Amelia was running late for her second shift at a hotel she hated. She spilled coffee on her only white blouse and was almost fired for the third time that month. On her way home, soaked in rain and regret, she helped an elderly woman cross a busy street. No cameras, no witnesses, just kindness. And that one moment of selflessness, it set off a chain reaction that would echo louder than any viral video ever could. That woman, she wasn't just anyone. She was connected, and she had a plan. What Amelia didn't know then was that her name was already being whispered in circles far above her pay grade. Someone wanted her to rise. Someone else wanted her to fall. And in the middle of it all was that kiss. You see, Logan doesn't do anything by accident. Everything he touches has purpose. And when he kissed Amelia, he knew exactly what he was doing, even if she didn't. As the gala lights glittered and the crowd gasped, Amelia stood frozen, not just from shock, but from the weight of something far greater than attraction. For a split second, she saw fear in Logan's eyes. Not love, not excitement. Fear, as if kissing her was the only way to protect her, or maybe the only way to destroy her before someone else could. Now, let me ask you again, have you ever wished for one moment to change everything? Because for Amelia, that wish came true, and it came with a price. She became the girl everyone wanted, but no one trusted. So what happens when a nobody becomes a headline? When every friend becomes a suspect and every opportunity feels like a trap? When your heart wants to believe in love, but your gut tells you to run? Amelia is about to find out, and so are you. Stay with me, because what's coming next? It'll shock you, it'll move you, and it'll make you question everything you think you know about fate, fame, and the fine line between love and manipulation. Just when she thought things couldn't get stranger, someone from Logan's past returns. And their secret? It's tied to Amelia in a way she never saw coming. Don't blink. Don't scroll. This is just the beginning. Cliffhanger ending to intro. The night after the kiss, Amelia wakes up to a message slipped under her apartment door. No name. No signature. Just 4 chilling words. You were never random. She reads again. Then her phone rings. It's Logan, but he's not calling to explain. He's calling to say goodbye. Amelia stared at her phone, the screen glowing like a ghost in the dim light of her apartment. Her fingers trembled as Logan's name flickered across it one last time before the call dropped into silence. He didn't leave a voicemail. He didn't call back. It was as if he'd vanished into the same shadows that had suddenly begun creeping into her once simple life. Her heart raced, but it wasn't because of heartbreak. It was because of the note. Those 4 words, "You were never random," kept echoing in her head like a warning disguised as a riddle. She looked around her small, rented studio. The chipped paint, the broken lamp, the second-hand furniture. Everything she owned told the story of someone forgotten, someone who had struggled quietly, never expecting to be seen. So why now? Why her? And more importantly, what did Logan know that he wasn't saying? In the days before the gala, Amelia's life had been unremarkable. She'd been balancing 2 part-time jobs, one as a hotel front desk assistant, the other as a nighttime freelance proofreader for a publishing startup barely staying afloat. Her relationships were few. She had a roommate once, but that ended awkwardly when rent became more than either could handle. Her best friend, Aria, was a barista with dreams of opening a plant cafe, but even she had started drifting lately, always busy, always texting someone Amelia didn't recognize. And her family? Complicated. Her mother lived in Arizona with a new husband Amelia had never met. Her father, well, he hadn't been in the picture since Amelia was 8. There were no powerful uncles, no trust funds, no secrets she knew of, just bills, memories, and a never-ending list of things she had to survive. But that week, things had shifted. Strange, subtle things that only made sense in hindsight. A man in a black coat who sat at the same cafe corner for 3 days straight, pretending to read a newspaper. A call from an unknown number that hung up the moment she answered. A bouquet of roses delivered to her work without a card, just a tiny tag that read, "For the one who sees." She laughed it off at the time, assuming it was a misdelivery or a weird prank. But now she wasn't so sure. The gala itself was never part of her plans. She wasn't invited. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near it. But 2 days before the event, Aria had called her with surprising excitement. "I got us passes. Last-minute openings. They needed volunteers." Red carpet assistants. UN. Amelia had almost said no. She was exhausted. Her ankles ached, and her deadlines were piling up. But something in Aria's voice was urgent, like this opportunity wasn't random either. So she said yes. That decision, seemingly small, was a pivot point her life spun around. She remembered arriving at the gala, stunned by the glamour. Celebrities, billionaires, influencers, people she'd only ever seen in headlines. The flashing lights, the music, the whispered secrets behind velvet ropes. And Logan, he was a living myth, standing at the top of the staircase in his tailored tux, his icy gaze scanning the crowd like he was reading data, not people. Then his eyes locked onto hers, just for a second. But in that second, something passed between them. Recognition? Warning? She couldn't tell. All she knew was that the next thing she remembered was him striding toward her with the kind of purpose that turned heads. And then, without a word, he kissed her. In the days that followed, she tried to make sense of it. Was it a dare? A distraction? A signal? Rumors exploded online. Gossip channels spun theories. Logan Whitmore's secret lover? Mysterious girl breaks billionaire's silence. Amelia Brooks, nobody or CIA plant. The press was ruthless. Her phone was flooded. Her old Instagram account, previously filled with thrift store finds and sunset photos, now had hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. Her DMs were a mess. Marriage proposals, threats, brand offers, even a movie casting agent asking for her availability. But behind the frenzy, something darker was stirring. Amelia started noticing inconsistencies. Her social media was being accessed from strange locations, Chicago, Boston, even overseas. A co-worker mentioned seeing her name flagged in an internal memo, but when she pressed for details, they suddenly clammed up. And then, someone broke into her apartment. Nothing was stolen, no forced entry. But someone had been there. Her dresser drawers were rearranged. Her laptop had a fingerprint she knew wasn't hers. And on the mirror, written faintly in condensation, were the words, "Don't trust her." Her mind immediately jumped to Aria. They'd been friends since college, but lately, Aria had been different, less available, secretive. She claimed she got the gala gig through a client she served coffee to regularly, but she never mentioned who. And on the night of the gala, Aria disappeared halfway through the event, sending Amelia a single message, "Stay near the entrance. Trust me." Amelia had trusted her, and that's exactly where Logan found her. But was Aria trying to protect her or deliver her? Then there was Liam, a quiet, soft-spoken IT guy who'd helped Amelia once when her old laptop crashed. They'd kept in touch casually, mostly through tech advice. But recently, he'd grown more intense, asking personal questions, offering to run scans on her devices. After the kiss went viral, he messaged her 3 times asking to meet in person. "I found something," he'd written, "but I can't say more here." She agreed to meet him at a diner near Union Square, but he never showed. Hours later, she received a message from an encrypted number. "Liam's offline. You should be, too." She tried to shake the paranoia, but everything was adding up wrong. The kiss, the cameras, the message under her door, Logan's sudden goodbye. It felt orchestrated, as if she were being moved like a chess piece on a board she couldn't even see. What scared her most was how little she knew about Logan. The media painted him as a tech genius with a robotic heart. His past was heavily curated. No known family, no close friends. But Amelia remembered the look in his eyes during the kiss. It wasn't passion. It wasn't curiosity. It was desperation. Like he had no choice. Like she was already caught in something she hadn't agreed to. And then came the email. It was untraceable, sent through layers of encrypted servers. The subject line read, "The Whitmore Initiative." Inside, there were 5 attachments, images of Amelia, not from the gala, from months ago, shopping, working, walking alone at night. The timestamp suggested someone had been watching her long before she ever knew Logan existed. There was also a file, an audio clip. She hesitated before pressing play. A distorted voice spoke. "She fits the profile, But she doesn't know. If he makes contact, it's too late. Contain her or remove her. Amelia dropped her phone. Her lungs felt tight, her vision blurred. Was she part of some experiment? A test subject? A threat to something bigger? The media still talked about the kiss, but no one saw the storm behind it. The secret watchers, the hidden files, the coded warnings. Everyone wanted to believe it was a modern-day love story, but Amelia was starting to believe it was something much more dangerous. Now, she couldn't trust anyone. Not Arya, not Liam, not even Logan, especially not Logan, because if she really wasn't random, then what exactly was she chosen for? And more importantly, who chose her? She had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went, but she knew one thing for sure. Someone out there was pulling strings. And if she didn't find out who soon, the next move might not be hers to make. Stay with me, because what Amelia is about to uncover will shake everything you thought you knew about truth, power, and the real cost of being wanted. Want me to continue with the next suspense-filled chapter? The rain hadn't let up for hours. Amelia sat in the back of a cab, her coat soaked through, staring blankly out the window as the city blurred by like a watercolor painting that someone left out in the storm. Her mind was spinning, overloaded with too many pieces that didn't quite fit together. She kept replaying the audio file in her head, the voice, that phrase. If he makes contact, it's too late. What did they mean by contain her or remove her? It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a threat. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. Whatever she'd been pulled into, it started long before that kiss. She just hadn't seen the signs. Or maybe she had, and ignored them because she desperately wanted something in her life to finally mean something. Back in her apartment, Amelia rushed to her laptop. The files from the anonymous email were still there, saved under an encrypted folder Liam had helped her create months ago. She double-checked everything, but as she clicked the audio file again to replay it, an error popped up, file not found. Confused, she checked the image folder. Empty. Not just empty, erased, as if it had never been there. She checked the logs, her downloads, even tried accessing backup recovery. Nothing. It was all gone. Her heart dropped. She hadn't shared those files with anyone. Not Arya, not Liam, not even with herself on another drive. It was all in that one location, and now, wiped clean, a chill ran through her. Someone had accessed her system again. Someone who didn't want her listening to that clip, looking at those pictures, or asking any more questions. Whoever was watching her wasn't just passively observing. They were manipulating, deleting, redirecting her path without her even realizing it. Just then, her apartment buzzer rang. 3 quick buzzes, then one long one. She froze. That pattern. It wasn't random. She'd heard it before. It was the same sequence Arya used when they used to sneak into their college dorm late at night, back when they were still inseparable. She hadn't seen Arya in days, not since the gala, and now she was suddenly showing up without warning. Amelia buzzed her in and waited by the door, her fingers wrapped tightly around the pepper spray she kept near the coat rack. She didn't know who to trust anymore, but she wasn't about to be caught off guard. Arya walked in wearing all black, her hood pulled low, her expression unreadable. For a second, Amelia felt the old warmth. 2 best friends facing the chaos of the world together. But then Arya spoke, and the warmth faded. "You have to stop asking questions," she said quietly, not even sitting down. "You're in over your head. Just walk away. Let it go." Amelia blinked. "Let it go?" "Arya, someone broke into my place. The files are gone. Logan called and then vanished. I don't even know what's real anymore." Arya glanced around the apartment, her eyes pausing briefly at Amelia's laptop before returning to her. "You were never supposed to be at that gala. I told you to stay near the entrance for a reason. You were just supposed to hand off a folder to a contact and leave. That kiss? It wasn't planned. It ruined everything." Amelia's stomach dropped. What folder? What contact? Arya's face tightened. "I can't explain everything. Just know I didn't set you up, but I also didn't expect him to choose you. You're not safe, Em. None of us are." Before Amelia could respond, Arya pulled a flash drive from her coat pocket and handed it over. This is the only backup I could make before the system locked me out. It might still have something they missed, but if you open it, do it somewhere public, somewhere safe. If they find out you have it. She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she turned to leave. Wait, Emilia called after her. Are you working with them? Who are they, Arya? Her old friend paused in the doorway, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not about working with them. It's about surviving them. Then she disappeared into the hallway, leaving the door swinging shut behind her, and Emilia holding a flash drive that suddenly felt more like a ticking bomb than a clue. Emilia's instinct screamed that something was wrong. Arya wasn't the kind of person to fold under pressure. She was bold, unafraid. But tonight, she looked like someone who had seen too much. Someone trapped. Emilia stared at the flash drive, unsure whether to open it or burn it. She didn't want to be a pawn in someone else's game, but she also couldn't live in the dark. Not anymore. If she was going to find the truth, she needed to stop reacting and start investigating. She packed a bag, grabbed her laptop, and took a late train to a co-working space in Midtown that stayed open 24/7. It was busy, full of students, creators, tech nerds. Perfect cover. She plugged in the flash drive. The files were there, dozens of documents, chat logs, surveillance reports. But one folder stood out. It was labeled Project Ember. She clicked it open, and there it was, a list of names. Hers, Logan's, Arya's, Liam's, dozens of others. Each name followed by coded numbers, dates, and something called proximity sync rate. At the top of the page, a phrase was written in red. Target traits: high empathy, low resistance, emotional tether confirmed. What was this? A recruitment list? A psychological experiment? Then she saw the date next to her name. April 3rd, 2009. She froze. That was the day her father disappeared. She clicked deeper, searching the logs. Her eyes widened. A document marked Archived, Do Not Delete, included an incident report. It mentioned a whistleblower, a cover-up, and a young girl whose memory had been intentionally suppressed for subject preservation. Her fingers hovered over the mouse as her breath caught. She was that girl. She tried to open the next file, but the screen suddenly went black. The power cut off. The co-working space lights flickered. Around her, people groaned, complaining about the outage. But Emilia knew this wasn't a random blackout. It was a message. Before she could react, her phone vibrated. A new message appeared from a number she didn't recognize. Stop digging, Emilia, or you'll remember more than you want to. The message was deleted before she could screenshot it. She sat there in the dark, surrounded by the faint hum of backup generators and whispered confusion. The flash drive was still in her hand. The past she thought she'd buried was clawing its way back to the surface. And now she had more questions than ever. Who had been watching her since she was a child? What was Project Ember? And if her father was involved, was he even really gone? One thing was certain. This wasn't just about Logan's kiss anymore. It never was. Do you want me to continue with the next explosive part of the story? The power flickered back on slowly, like a curtain lifting after a long, tense intermission. Emilia sat frozen, the faint buzz of returning electronics echoing louder than the voices around her. Her laptop rebooted, but the flash drive now showed an error message. Device not recognized. Her heart sank. The files were gone. Again, erased or corrupted, like someone was always one step ahead, watching her every move, silencing every attempt she made to pull the curtain back. She had no doubt now. Whatever this Project Ember was, it was powerful, buried deep, and protected by people with a kind of reach that spanned both her past and her present. And the message, stop digging, Emilia, or you'll remember more than you want to, wasn't just a warning. It was a threat tailored to her specific fear. Because remembering meant reopening a wound she'd tried to forget since she was a child. The day her father vanished without a trace. She was told he walked out. But something in that message suggested otherwise. Maybe he didn't disappear. Maybe he was taken. Emilia packed her things and left the co-working space without speaking to anyone. The streets outside buzzed with energy. streetlights glowing, traffic pulsing, and a faint smell of rain lingering in the air. Everything felt normal, ordinary. But to her, the entire city now seemed like a maze filled with eyes and ears. The deeper she went, the more she realized that her life had been entangled in something far greater than she ever imagined. What haunted her most wasn't just the secrets or the surveillance. It was a possibility that everyone around her might know more than they admitted. The moment she got back to her building, her phone rang. This time, it was a number she did recognize. Liam's. She answered, heart racing, half expecting more static or a scrambled voice. But his tone was clear. Calm. Almost too calm. Amelia, we need to talk. Meet me at the park, the North Fountain, in 20 minutes. Don't bring your phone. Leave it at home. Before she could ask questions, he hung up. She knew that part of the city. It was open, full of joggers and late-night dog walkers. Not exactly private, but maybe that was the point. She left her phone behind, grabbed her coat, and walked the 10 blocks in silence, every footstep echoing louder in her mind than it did on the pavement. When she reached the fountain, Liam was already there, hood up, sitting on a bench like he'd been waiting for hours. As she approached, he didn't smile. He didn't move. He just spoke, eyes fixed straight ahead. I got the same message you did, he said, 2 nights ago. Except mine wasn't about Project Ember. Mine mentioned your father. Amelia sat beside him, her hands clenched. You knew about my dad? I knew he worked for a company called Helix Corp, Liam replied quietly. A think tank that developed early predictive surveillance systems. But it wasn't public. It was funded by private investors tied to global data firms. What I didn't know until this week, what I found buried deep in a satellite server, was that Helix Corp went dark a year after your father vanished. And guess what they were working on before they disappeared? Amelia stared at him, not sure she wanted the answer. Project Ember. He handed her a slip of paper. Coordinates, timestamps, and one phrase underlined in red. Subject 0, Emotional Predictive Modeling, Brooks E. Her breath caught. Subject 0? They've been testing you for years, Liam said, his voice tight. Not just watching. Measuring your reactions. Tracking how you respond to stress, loss, connection. I think the kiss wasn't random. I think Logan was part of simulation. No, she whispered, shaking her head. He looked at me like he knew me, like he was trying to protect me. Or control you, Liam said sharply. Look, I don't want to believe it either, but I hacked a private server tied to his AI company, Whitmore Dynamics. And guess what I found? Surveillance logs on you, going back over a decade. Photos, messages, patterns of movement, and more importantly, files with your father's name flagged as internal asset. Amelia felt like the air was draining from her lungs. Her father, the one man she thought had abandoned her, might have been part of the machine all along. Or worse, he'd built it. And Logan? Was he her savior or her handler? Before she could respond, Liam leaned in closer. Someone else is looking for you now. A woman. I don't know who she is, but she left a message on my firewall drive. Said she used to work with your father. She goes by the name Nova. She wants to meet. She says she has proof that Project Ember didn't end. It evolved. That you're not the only one. That's when Amelia felt it. The tug of another storyline folding into hers, just when she thought it couldn't get more twisted. Another player, another thread, and possibly another victim. Back at her apartment, Amelia found something else waiting. A package on her kitchen counter. No return address. No delivery confirmation. Just a white envelope inside and a necklace. A pendant shaped like a flame. The same flame logo she remembered seeing on one of her father's old notebooks as a child. Alongside the necklace was a single photograph. Her as a little girl, sitting beside a woman she didn't recognize. The woman had sharp eyes, dark hair, and a half smile that felt both warm and haunting. On the back of the photo, scrawled in blue ink, were the words, "Ask your mother about her real name." Amelia stood frozen. Her mother, the woman who'd raised her, moved across the country, and never once spoke about the past, was now tangled in this too? That single sentence unraveled everything she thought she knew about her family. The secrets weren't just corporate or experimental. They were personal. And if her mother wasn't who she claimed to be, then who was Amelia, really? Before she could process it all, her apartment lights flickered again, then steadied. Another message appeared on her laptop, already typed into a blank document she hadn't opened. Logan wasn't supposed to fall for you. The cursor blinked once. Then the message erased itself. And this time, she was certain it wasn't just about surveillance or data or predictive modeling. It was about love, or the illusion of it, and whether she was living inside someone's experiment or trying to escape the consequences of someone else's obsession. Would you like to continue with the next twisted layer of the story? Amelia didn't sleep that night. The photograph, the necklace, the message that deleted itself. Every detail clawed at her sanity like invisible hands. The woman in the picture had eyes that felt too familiar, too intimate, like a ghost from a life Amelia couldn't remember. The sentence on the back, "Ask your mother about her real name," looped in her head like a ticking bomb waiting to explode. She thought of calling her mom, demanding answers, but a deeper fear stopped her. What if her mother wasn't just hiding something, but actively part of this? What if the woman who raised her wasn't even who she claimed to be? By dawn, the shadows in her apartment no longer felt like tricks of the light. They felt alive, watching, waiting. She showered with the bathroom door open, kept the hallway light on even as the sun rose, and jumped at every creak in the floorboards. Her anxiety, once buried under years of discipline and routine, now sat fully exposed. She could feel it in her chest, in her limbs, like something primal warning her to run, but offering no direction. Around noon, she ventured outside. She needed air, movement, anything to shake the feeling that her world was collapsing from the inside out. As she walked, she noticed a man across the street, dressed in plain clothes, but too clean, too still. He wasn't pretending to text or glance at shop windows. He was just standing there, watching. When she made eye contact, he didn't flinch. He smiled just slightly and then walked away. Not fast, not slow, like someone who didn't need to run because he already knew how this ended. Amelia quickened her pace. Her neighborhood, once comforting in its messiness and noise, now felt foreign and sharp. Every corner held possibilities. Every stranger might be a handler, a spy, a threat. She ducked into a busy cafe she'd visited 100 times before. The barista, usually chatty, didn't greet her, just slid her drink across the counter, without a word. Amelia's pulse hammered as she turned to sit. Then she saw it. Taped beneath the table, folded into a tight square, was a napkin. Written on it in familiar handwriting, Liam's, were 5 words. Run. They took Aria. Her legs nearly buckled. She sat down hard, her drink shaking in her hand. Aria missing? Just hours ago, she'd warned Amelia, handed her the flash drive, told her to be careful. Now she was gone, taken? But by who? And why? Was it because she helped? Was it punishment or leverage? The cafe around her faded into a blur of color and sound. The noise of espresso machines, soft jazz, idle conversation. It all felt distant, irrelevant. Her thoughts raced, looping to the last few days, replaying every conversation, every clue, every warning she didn't fully understand until now. She felt the walls closing in, not metaphorically, literally. She felt boxed in, targeted, hunted. Gripping the napkin, she stood quickly and walked out without finishing her drink. She didn't head home. She couldn't. Home wasn't safe anymore. No place was. She took the subway downtown, blending in with commuters and tourists. Every person she passed could be part of it. That was the maddening part. How normal it all seemed. How deeply this conspiracy was woven into her everyday life. How many of these people were watching her? Following her? Controlling what she saw and didn't? She got off at a random stop, sat on a bench in a busy station, and tried to breathe. Her reflection in the metal panel opposite her looked pale, haunted. She hadn't realized how quickly she'd changed. How the girl who just a week ago was running errands and checking email was now questioning her own identity, fearing shadows, and wondering if she was someone else's science project. And then her phone, which she had left at home as Liam had told her, buzzed. Her backup, a burner phone she kept in her bag in case of emergencies. Only 2 people had the number, Arya and Liam. But the text wasn't from either of them. It read, "Your father's not dead, and you're not who you think you are." She stared at the message until it blurred. Tears welled up, not from sadness, but from sheer overload. Every piece of information twisted the knife deeper. If her father was alive, then what had been the point of all those years of grief? The birthday card she never got. The explanations that never came. The way her mother had cried but never answered questions. And if she wasn't who she thought she was, then who was she? She tried calling Liam, but the call didn't go through. His number had been disconnected, or blocked, or worse. And now Arya was missing. Her mother's name might be fake. Logan had disappeared after a kiss that shattered everything. The truth wasn't just hiding from her. It was actively rewriting itself, pushing her deeper into isolation, deeper into fear. Emilia exited the station, heart racing. She needed answers, but more than that, she needed a plan. She needed to survive. Every lead felt poisoned. Every friend felt like a potential traitor. Even the memory of that kiss with Logan, once confusing and surreal, now felt laced with intent. Was it genuine? Or a switch flipped by some psychological algorithm embedded in her since childhood? As she wandered the streets, she passed a digital billboard flashing news and trending videos. One headline caught her eye. Mysterious disappearance at Midtown Gala. Woman vanishes after viral billionaire kiss. The article was using a blurred photo of Arya, and below it her own face. The woman at the center of the conspiracy. Not a victim, not a witness. A suspect. The media had turned. The story had changed. And now the hunt was public. Everyone was watching. But no one knew the truth, because she didn't even know it herself. Would you like me to continue with the next intense reveal? The sun was beginning to set, casting long, gold-streaked shadows across the city as Emilia walked with no real direction, her thoughts louder than the sirens and car horns echoing around her. She couldn't go home, couldn't trust the police, and couldn't reach Liam or Arya. She was spiraling through a story that had started with a kiss but had unraveled into a full-blown nightmare of surveillance, betrayal, and a past she was no longer sure belonged to her. She ducked into a dim alley between 2 bookstores, her hands shaking as she unfolded the napkin from the cafe again, tracing Liam's handwriting like it might somehow lead her to Arya. Every instinct screamed that something massive was about to give way, that the truth she had been chasing was far more dangerous than she could have imagined. And then, almost like fate responded, her phone vibrated again. Another text, this one from a new number. It simply read, "Come to 101 Ashcroft. Now, trust no one. Bring the pendant." The pendant. She'd stuffed it in her pocket earlier, too afraid to wear it, but too unsure to leave behind. She stared at the text for a moment longer, debating whether it was another trap. But something about the tone, the urgency, felt different. Familiar, even. She hailed a cab, gave the driver the address, and leaned back, her mind racing. She thought of Logan, of Arya, of her father. And now, this pendant with a symbol she hadn't seen since childhood suddenly seemed to be the key to everything. The cab pulled up to the address, an old industrial building at the edge of the city, long abandoned, windows dark, covered in graffiti. If this wasn't a setup, it sure looked like one. But Emilia had nothing left to lose. She pushed open the rusted door, the hinges screeching like a warning, and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, the silence deafening. She walked carefully, each step echoing through the cavernous space. Then a voice, soft male age but unmistakably calm, cut through the stillness. "I knew you'd come." She turned sharply. A man emerged from the shadows. Tall, thin, dressed in worn clothes, but his eyes were sharp, alive. Emilia's heart stuttered in her chest. She didn't recognize him, yet something about him pulled at a memory buried deep beneath years of pain. "Who are you?" she asked, though the answer had already begun forming in her chest like a slow, awful realization. He smiled, sad and worn. "You called me Dad once." Her knees nearly buckled. The world tilted. This couldn't be. Her father was dead. He'd left, disappeared, lied about, grieved for. But here he was, alive, standing in front of her like some cruel hallucination. No, no, this isn't real. You died. You left us. I didn't leave, he said softly. I was taken. I was silenced. Because I tried to protect you. The room spun. Amelia backed up a step, her breathing shallow. Protect me from what? He walked forward slowly, pulling something from his coat pocket. A small, square device. He pressed it, and a screen on the wall lit up, flickering before displaying surveillance footage. Dozens of clips, grainy and time-stamped. All of Amelia, as a child, a teenager, last week. Each file labeled, cross-referenced, and annotated. She stared at the screen, her image frozen at different points in time, like a science project under constant observation. I built this system, he said quietly, years ago. It started as a tool, something to predict emotional response patterns, to help prevent violence, understand trauma. But it evolved. The wrong people saw its potential. They realized it could be used to manipulate behavior, influence choices, create control without force. Her head was spinning. Project Ember. He nodded. You were the prototype, the first true subject. We never told you. You were too young. But your responses, the way you process loss, love, trust, you were exactly what they needed. And when I tried to pull you out to shut it down, they buried me, staged my death, disappeared me. Amelia's legs gave out, and she sat hard on a metal crate, her hands trembling. So the kiss, Logan, her father's face darkened. Logan was supposed to trigger the final stage of the modeling. The kiss was a variable event, one that would set off a chain of emotional data collection to confirm your susceptibility to programmed influence. Amelia felt sick, so it wasn't real. It was all fake, engineered. No, he said quickly, stepping closer. That's what changed everything. He fell for you, genuinely. He broke protocol. That's why they tried to erase him, just like they tried to erase me. But he ran. He disappeared after the gala because he knew what would come next. He tried to warn you, but he also knew if he stayed close, they'd use him against you. Tears blurred Amelia's vision. The betrayal, the manipulation, it ran deeper than anything she had imagined. But it wasn't over. Her father's face turned grim. They're not just watching anymore. They're activating. You're not the only subject. There are more. You saw the list, didn't you? Ember is still live. And now that you've started to uncover it, they'll come after you harder. They need to finish what they started. Suddenly, the pendant in her pocket felt heavier, hotter. She pulled it out, showing it to him. What is this? It's a key, he said. A literal and symbolic one. It's coded with an algorithm. A backdoor I built in before they cut me out. If you can get to Logan, he can use it to collapse the entire system. But I don't even know where he is. Before she could finish, a loud crack split the air. The window behind them shattered. A flash of red light blinked from a building across the street. Sniper, her father muttered, grabbing her arm. They found us. They ran. Out the back, through the alley, through the heavy shadows of city that had become a game board built to trap her. They didn't speak again until they reached a nearby warehouse. Inside, her father locked the doors, panting. You need to go dark. Amelia. Off-grid. Don't trust any networks, any signals. They'll use everything against you now. She looked at him, fear and fury raging inside. Why me? Why not anyone else? He paused, the weight of the world etched into the lines on his face. Because you were never just a subject. You were the anomaly. You weren't supposed to resist it. But you did. And just as Amelia began to ask what he meant, the power cut out again, and a voice came over the loudspeaker inside the warehouse. Soft, calm, robotic. Hello, Subject Zero. We've missed you. The sound stopped her cold. It wasn't just anyone's voice. It was hers. Her own voice, recorded, repurposed, distorted. And suddenly, The real question wasn't who was controlling her. It was, how long had she already been under their control? Would you like the next installment, where Amelia uncovers the truth about her own mind? The voice echoed to the warehouse, hollow and unshakable, twisting the air with a surreal sharpness that made Amelia's skin crawl. Hearing her own voice, disembodied, manipulated, stripped of emotion, felt like standing in front of a distorted mirror that reflected not her face, but her programming. She turned toward her father, whose expression had gone pale and distant, like a man who had hoped this day would never come but always knew it would. The silence that followed was heavy, smothering, pressing against her lungs as if daring her to breathe. She finally spoke, her voice low, trembling but filled with resolve. "What did they do to me?" Her father didn't answer right away. He walked slowly to a storage cabinet in the corner of the room, unlocked it with a worn key, and pulled out a weathered box. Inside were old tapes, photographs, medical reports, pages filled with neural diagrams and heavily redacted government memos. He handed her a file labeled Subliminal Encoding, Trial Phase, EB. Her initials. Amelia flipped through the pages, her heart sinking with every word. Hypnotic conditioning, emotional triggers, behavioral reinforcement. Subject unaware. She wanted to scream, to tear the pages apart and burn them to ash, but the truth was there in black and white. Her entire life, her fears, her instincts, her decisions had been shaped, monitored, influenced by invisible forces and unseen hands. Not just watched, controlled. "I didn't know how much they did to you until it was too late," her father said, his voice raw. "When I realized, I tried to dismantle the system. They labeled me a threat and erased everything, including my relationship with you." Amelia took a step back. Her mind was screaming. Her chest was tight, and yet a deeper part of her refused to collapse. Instead, a burning question surfaced, a question that demanded an answer. Did Mom know? Her father hesitated, and in that pause, she found her answer. "She was the one who signed the clearance forms," he said, barely above a whisper. "She thought it was just cognitive testing, until she didn't. And by then, they made it clear either she cooperated or she lost everything, including you." The betrayal crashed over Amelia in waves. Her mother, her only remaining constant, the one who held her during night terrors, who told her bedtime stories and cried quietly when she thought Amelia wasn't listening, had been part of it, maybe unwillingly, maybe with the best of intentions, but involved nonetheless. The realization gutted her, and yet it also planted a seed of something else. Fury, not rage without direction, but the kind that sharpens into focus. But before she could let that feeling take shape, her father handed her a burner phone and a small envelope. "You need to make a choice now," he said, his voice trembling. "There's a contact in Canada, someone who can erase your identity. New name, new life, complete blackout. They own me. You'll be safe. No more surveillance. No more lies. You disappear for good." She opened the envelope. Inside were 2 passports, cash, and a ticket for a private transport leaving that night. It was the first time in days she felt a sense of possible escape, a tangible exit. But then her father added, "If you don't go, if you stay to fight this, they'll come after you harder than ever. You won't just be hunted. They'll reprogram you completely. You won't remember who you are. You won't be able to trust your own thoughts. If they can't use you, they'll remake you." Her body froze. He wasn't speaking in metaphors. He meant it literally. "But if I run," she said, her voice shaking, "then they win. And Area's gone forever. Liam, Logan, everything they did, it gets buried." He didn't argue. He just looked at her like a man who had already buried too many regrets. "You still have time, but not much." Amelia stared at the burner phone in her hand. Then it buzzed. A video message. She tapped play, and the screen lit up with Area's face, bruised, tired, but alive. The camera angle was off, like she was filming secretly. "I don't know how long I have," Arya said, her voice hushed. "They're watching everything. But listen, they're not just targeting you. There are others. I saw them. Kids. Teenagers. They're building something with your data. You were just a test. Now they're scaling it. Please don't run. If you run, they win. If you fight, maybe we still have a chance." The video cut off mid-sentence. Amelia stared at the screen, tears brimming in her eyes. Arya had risked everything. She was still fighting. And Amelia knew what that meant. She couldn't leave. Not now. Not with the truth so close. She looked up at her father. "I'm staying," she said. His face didn't change. He simply nodded once, then turned toward a wall safe hidden behind a false panel. "Then there's something else you need to see." He opened the safe and pulled out a hard drive. "This has the original Ember blueprints, before they were corrupted. With this, you can trace the system back to its origin node. If you destroy the origin, you collapse the entire network. But it's in a facility in Nevada, deep underground, armed, off-grid, and they know you're coming." She took the drive. Its weight in her hand felt like the burden of 1,000 stolen memories. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. For herself. For the others. For the years she lived inside someone else's story without knowing it. As they made plans to move, another message came through the burner phone. This one from Logan. It read, "Don't go to Nevada. That's not the source. It's me." Amelia stared at the words, her blood running cold. Her hands trembled as she reread the message over and over. Logan wasn't just involved. He was the origin. Or at least, that's what they wanted her to believe. And just like that, everything she thought she knew twisted again. Would you like me to continue the next part, where Amelia confronts Logan and discovers the truth behind his role? The air felt thin at the moment. Amelia read Logan's message. "Don't go to Nevada. That's not the source. It's me." It sat like a stone in her stomach, twisting everything she thought she understood into something darker, something more personal. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she turned to her father. The words caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear apart every lie that had been fed to her since the night of the gala. But all she could do was stare at that glowing screen, her world collapsing piece by piece. Logan, the man whose kiss had ignited this entire nightmare, who had disappeared when she needed him most, who had known things he shouldn't have, was now claiming he was the origin, not Nevada, not the lab. Him. Her father looked over her shoulder, eyes scanning the message, and his face went still. Not shocked, just resigned, as if a truth he'd buried long ago had finally clawed its way to the surface. He didn't speak at first, just walked away from her, back to the safe, and pulled out another file, one she hadn't seen. He handed it to her, without a word. Inside were images not of her, but of Logan. Years' worth of files, surveillance records, psychological profiles, dating back to before they had ever met. But what shattered her was a photo at the bottom of the pile. Logan standing beside her father, years ago, in a lab, both of them younger, smiling, like colleagues, no, like friends. Amelia's hands trembled as she held the picture. "You knew him. You've known him this whole time." Her father sat down slowly, the weight of years catching up to him in an instant. "Logan was my partner. He helped build the first version of Ember. He wasn't just part of the system. He was a system. He volunteered for integration. They fused his cognitive patterns into the neural interface we use to map empathy behavior. He became the framework for how the AI interprets emotional triggers. We called him the mirror." Amelia's breath caught. "You built Ember based on him?" "He was our control, the emotional constant, until he fell in love with you." The sentence shattered her. It explained everything. The unpredictability, the vanishing files, the gaps in logic, the moments of surreal connection she felt with Logan that never made sense. He wasn't just an observer. He wasn't even just a handler. He was embedded in the very code used to manipulate her. He was a code. And somehow, amidst it all, he broke from it, fell for her, became human again. She didn't have time to process it. Her father secured Channel Flare to life, an emergency transmission. Surveillance had been breached. The Nevada facility had gone silent. Her own image was being broadcast across multiple dark web channels with a new label attached. Asset compromised. Directive, erase, This wasn't just about hiding the truth anymore. They were in cleanup mode. She wasn't a subject to study. She was now a liability to eliminate. And then came the second wave: news alerts, real-time feeds, public footage from street cameras. Amelia's face flashing across them. Not accused, not missing, but framed. A national alert had been issued. Her name attached to false reports of cyber attacks, stolen data, and terrorist coordination. The media was eating it up. Former tech consultant tied to rogue AI plot. The headline screamed, Ember Woman on the run. Trending hashtags lit up the internet. Hashtag Ember Conspiracy. Hashtag AI threat level. Hashtag Logan virus. She wasn't just being hunted by shadow organizations anymore. The world now believed she was the villain. Her father's voice broke through the chaos. We need to go now. If we wait even 5 more minutes. But Amelia didn't hear him. Her phone had buzzed again one final time. It was a live feed. Logan's face appeared on screen, tired, unshaven, eyes filled with pain. If you're seeing this, he said, his voice cracking, then I failed to stop them from activating the final sequence. They're not just watching anymore. Ember's been restructured. It's no longer about monitoring emotional responses. It's about rewriting them. Every person on the list, you, me, Arya, Liam, we're not the only ones. They've expanded. Schools, hospitals, military recruits. Anyone flagged as emotionally adaptive is being encoded through real-world events. They're using global trauma to rewrite empathy in real time. This isn't a project anymore. It's a weapon. The screen glitched, then froze. Her father paled. They're moving to phase 2. She stood there, the reality of what was unfolding crashing down like a tidal wave. The entire system, built on years of psychological modeling, had shifted into something far more dangerous. Ember wasn't just about control. It was about conversion. And the weapon wasn't technology. It was human response. Grief, love, fear, memory, all of it engineered to reshape behavior at scale. What she had seen as surveillance was just a testing ground. The real program was now live. And the people it was targeting, they didn't even know they were part of it. But the final betrayal was yet to come. As she grabbed her things, preparing to run again, the burner phone rang. A blocked number. She answered, breath held. "Hello, Amelia," said a familiar voice. Calm, measured, chilling. It was Arya. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I had no choice. They showed me what would happen if I didn't comply. You weren't supposed to get this far. I only wanted to protect you, but I gave them your location. They're coming. Please forgive me." The line went dead. Amelia stood frozen. Her oldest friend, her last thread of trust, had handed her over. The walls were closing in. But something inside her snapped. Not fear, not defeat, but fire. She had been shaped and molded her whole life without knowing it. Now, the world had turned against her, but they had underestimated the one variable they never could predict, her will to fight. She turned to her father. "No more running. We bring it all down. Every node, every server, every lie." Sirens blared in the distance. Footsteps echoed outside the warehouse door. She stared at the entrance, her heart beat steady. Let them come. Would you like the final explosive chapter where Amelia risks everything to destroy the Ember system? The night air was thick with the tension of everything Amelia had lost and everything she was about to risk. The final destination wasn't some remote server farm in the desert or a data center guarded by drones. It was right here, in the heart of the city, buried beneath an old tech startup building that had gone bankrupt years ago. But it had never really gone under. It had simply gone dark. This was a place Logan had once mentioned in passing, coded under a false name in the original Ember blueprints, the Origin Room. A place where every file, every stream, every manipulation had been fed, refined, and sent back out into the world through innocuous apps, social feeds, even streaming services. Everything connected here. And now, she stood just feet from the core, the truth finally within reach. She and her father had bypassed 3 locked levels of security systems, using old access credentials, and the backdoor code buried deep in the pendant she had carried like a curse. The building was eerily silent. humming with a low frequency of servers that hadn't stopped running in years. It was a monument to everything she had feared. Sterile, precise, and cold, like a brain operating without a soul. At the center of it all, down a long hallway illuminated only by pale LED strips, stood a reinforced glass chamber. Inside it, a single chair and interface helmet and rows of live data streams dancing across holographic screens. And in the chair, Logan. But he wasn't bound or held captive. He wasn't hooked to wires or guards or surveillance monitors. He was waiting, calm, still, wearing the same expression she remembered from their first encounter, part affection, part sorrow. Her father tried to rush forward, but Logan held up a hand, and something in the gesture made Amelia stop him. "I knew you'd come," Logan said softly, his voice echoing across the chamber like it had that night in the warehouse. But now it was real, flesh and blood, not a transmission, not an illusion. Amelia stepped forward slowly, the tension in her limbs drawn so tight it felt like her body might split apart from the pressure. "You said you were the origin." "I am," he said, "but not in the way you think." Her father stepped forward, voice sharp. "She deserves the truth." Logan nodded. "She does. But it's not the kind of truth you can read in a file or decode from a hard drive. It's older than the system. Before Ember was even conceived, there was a proposal, a test, to explore what it meant to predict behavior at the level of emotion, not just data, not logic. Emotion, that was the key to human vulnerability. And to prove it, the architects didn't build a system. They raised one. Amelia's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" Logan looked at her with eyes filled with regret. "You weren't just the first subject. You were the blueprint. Your life wasn't observed. It was curated. Every trauma, every connection, every betrayal. Your memories were shaped to test emotional variance in controlled environments. I was created, programmed, to be your constant, your catalyst. Our connection wasn't an accident. It was designed." Her heart nearly stopped. "You were never real?" "I was real the moment I chose to love you," Logan said. "But everything before that? Scripted. Meant to measure how you respond to joy, to loss, to forgiveness. The kiss, it wasn't just a trigger. It was a final sequence. It activated the full map of your emotional coding, unlocking Ember's real potential. They didn't just use your reactions. They used them to rewrite empathy on a mass scale. Every time you felt something deeply, the system learned how to replicate it, across millions. Her father stepped between them, rage tightening his features. "You let them use her like a lab rat. You told me you wanted out." "I did," Logan said, standing now, stepping out of the chair. "But you knew the rules. Once it started, there was no way to shut it down without destroying the core. And now she is the core." Amelia stumbled backward, the weight of the revelation hitting her like a blow to the chest. It wasn't just that she'd been used. It was that she was the system now. Every interaction she'd ever had become the foundation of a program that was rewriting human behavior. If she walked away, the system would continue to evolve using her as the blueprint. If she destroyed it, she'd lose everything, including the parts of herself that were still real. "There's one way out," Logan said, quieter now, as if the weight of his words were suffocating him. "We can collapse it. All of it. But you'll lose every memory tied to the data. The feelings, the people, everything connected to Ember. Your sense of self will reset. You'll forget me. You'll forget what they did. It'll be like none of this ever happened." "No," her father snapped. "We find another way." "There is no other way," Logan replied. "They're already scaling the system globally. You've seen the threads. Schools, militaries, politics. They're shaping emotional outcomes before people even make choices. If we don't shut it down now, it'll never be undone." Amelia stood at the edge of the interface pad, staring down at the chair that had become the altar of her own undoing. Her entire life had been stolen, forged into a weapon without her consent. But now, in this one moment, she had control, true control. She could end it. She could stop them. But the price was everything she was. Her identity, her memories, Even Logan. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and her voice broke as she asked, "If I do this, who will I be?" Logan walked to her slowly, reached out, and placed a pendant around her neck. "You'll be free." She closed her eyes and sat in the chair. Her father screamed, tried to pull her away, but Logan held him back. She's the only one who can do it. It has to be her choice. The system came alive. Lights flickered. Alarms pulsed. The interface locked into place around her head, and the data streams flared with impossible speed. Memories flashed through Amelia's mind like lightning. Her childhood, her mother's laugh, Aria's warning, Liam's smile, Logan's kiss, each moment unraveling, pixelating, dissolving into code. She felt herself slipping, like a thread pulled from the fabric of reality. Her heart raced, her breath hitched, and then silence. And then light. The system shut down. Every feed went dark. The building groaned with finality as servers burned themselves into oblivion, memory by memory, until nothing remained but stillness. Amelia opened her eyes and didn't recognize the man in front of her. Her father choked on a sob, reaching for her, but Logan stepped between them, shaking his head. She doesn't remember. She looked around slowly. "Where am I?" The voice was hers, but empty, new, untouched by pain. Logan smiled, just barely. "You're safe." As the room crumbled around them, Logan pulled her close, whispered something only she could hear. Then he turned and walked into the flames of the collapsing system, his final choice. The one variable even Ember couldn't predict. A year later, Amelia stood at a cafe, watching the world move with unfamiliar comfort. She didn't know why she always ordered the same drink, or why certain faces felt like echoes. But sometimes when she closed her eyes, she swore she could feel a heartbeat that wasn't hers. And somewhere deep beneath the surface, a single server blinked back to life. Unmarked, hidden, labeled only. Subject 1 rebooted. Would you like to continue into the post-climax epilogue? Setting up a possible sequel? The wind carried a soft chill through the city that morning, brushing past the cafe awning and stirring the leaves along the sidewalk as Amelia sat alone by the window, watching the world go by with a gaze that seemed to stretch past what was visible. She had been coming to this cafe every Thursday at the same time, always ordering the same drink, a vanilla chai with a dash of cinnamon, though she never remembered why it felt familiar. The barista didn't ask her name anymore, and she didn't offer it. But something in the ritual felt grounding, like muscle memory from a life she couldn't recall, echoing through time and routine. There were no more cameras following her, no more encrypted messages tucked beneath tables or shadows slipping between crowds. Her life had returned to something resembling normal, though she knew deep down that normal was only the illusion she allowed herself to accept. Because even if she didn't remember what had happened before, some part of her still carried the weight of it. She could feel it in the way her fingers tensed when certain songs played in the background, or how she instinctively avoided mirror-like surfaces without knowing why. Her heart still responded to things her mind no longer understood. She now lived under a different name in a small apartment just outside the city, off-grid, untraceable, hand-picked by the remnants of an old contact network her father had set up before everything came crashing down. Her official history had been wiped clean, her digital footprint deleted with precision. The world had moved on, and so had she, at least on the surface. Yet somewhere in the depths of her dreams, flashes of emotion would surge through her. Joy, heartbreak, betrayal, fire, and vanish before she could grasp them. Sometimes she would wake up with tears on her cheeks, not knowing whose memory she had borrowed for the night. Her therapist said it was a psychological response to emotional trauma, but Amelia suspected it was more than that. She felt like a book that had been burned but still smelled faintly of ink. There were answers she would never get. Memories erased to stop the Ember program from ever rising again. Details sacrificed for the greater good. Logan's fate remained a silent ache. No body was ever recovered. No trace left behind. Just a name that occasionally floated through the dark corners of the internet, whispered on forums that claimed knowledge of AI weaponization and memory suppression experiments. But Amelia never chased those rumors. Whether he had died when the system collapsed or simply walked away to protect her from being triggered again, she couldn't say. All she knew was that he had given her back her agency. The choice had been hers. And in giving her freedom, he had erased himself from the one person who had truly seen him. Her father now lived quietly under a government witness protection program in northern Canada. They spoke rarely, by design, using only burner phones and agreed upon drop points for communication. He had become something of a ghost, tired, cautious, guilt-ridden. But whenever he did reach out, it was a reminder that she was still free, and that no system, no matter how complex, could ever define what it means to feel. She clung to that, because there were days when the silence screamed louder than memory, days when she felt like she might just disappear again into a false sense of peace, or worse, into herself. But it was a late evening in early autumn when everything shifted again. She was walking home to park, the leaves crunching beneath her boots, when a child, no older than 7, ran up to her, laughing, holding a small toy drone buzzing softly in his hand. He stopped short, staring at her with curious eyes, and said, "You were in my dream. You saved the city." His mother called for him, and he ran off, leaving her standing there, breath caught in her chest. There had been no headlines about her, no trace of her name or story in any public file. That child couldn't have known, not unless... She turned and looked out across the trees. A tall figure stood by the edge of the path, leaning on a cane, a dark coat brushing the ground. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just looked at her with something quiet in his expression. Not recognition, not longing, just peace. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the falling dusk. She never saw him again, and never needed to. Weeks passed, then months, and the seasons changed again. One morning, Amelia woke to the sound of birds outside her window and felt something different in her chest. Not panic or confusion, but clarity. Whatever Ember had tried to control, whatever role she had played in its rise and fall, she was no longer defined by it. Her freedom had not come from erasing the past. It had come from choosing to live despite it. Even if she never remembered the full story, the emotions remained imprinted on her soul like fingerprints on glass. And yet, deep beneath the surface of a quiet, sleeping world, something stirred. In a forgotten facility now buried by time and overgrowth, a flicker of power returned to a hidden server node. A single line of code, long dormant, began to loop. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The words on the screen were few, just enough to remind anyone who might stumble upon it that nothing ever truly disappears. Subject 1 rebooted, sequence initializing. But far from that server, in the heart of a city alive with the randomness of real human life, Amelia stirred sugar into her coffee and smiled softly at nothing in particular. Because while systems could be rebuilt and secrets buried beneath layers of code, there was one thing Ember had never been able to predict, replicate, or control: what a human heart chooses to remember, and what it dares to feel again.